I'm going on a business trip. Don't you dare call me unless it's a real emergency," my husband yelled as he hastily packed for his weekend away. All I had done was mention that I'd only contact him in case of an emergency, but his irritation was palpable. He clicked his tongue in annoyance, his usual sign of disdain. Of course, I knew the truth. This wasn't a business trip at all. He was off on a weekend getaway with his mistress. "If you keep bothering me with your nonsense, I'll claim emotional distress and sue you," he added, his threats as absurd as they were cruel. Over time, it had become clear that John had lost all sense of empathy. He ignored our sick daughter, prioritized his own selfish desires, and neglected his family entirely. I didn't dare stand up to him. I was just trying to protect myself and our children. On the day of his so-called business trip, fate intervened. I accidentally learned that John had been in a severe car accident. His earlier command echoed in my mind, "Don't contact me under any circumstances." A part of me felt conflicted, but his indifference had long taught me to prioritize my own peace of mind. Whatever happened to him was no longer my concern. Besides, I was holding on to a secret of my own, something he didn't know and never would. A wry smile crept onto my face as I turned off my phone, shutting out his chaos. "My name is Mary. I'm 34 years old, a handmade artist working from home. Creating accessories and crafts has been my passion since childhood. I turned it into a hobby, then a side business after leaving my job to raise our 2 children, Ethan, an 8th grader, and Claire, a 6th grader. Once Claire started school, I had the chance to revive my craft, selling my creations online. John, my husband, is 2 years older than me. We first met in high school and reconnected at a reunion years later. He works in construction management, a field he entered inspired by his father's legacy. His father had spent decades at the same company, continuing even past retirement, and John idolized him for it. Unfortunately, that admiration translated into John putting his career above all else, including his family. John's parents, both in their 70s, were active and frequently dropped by unannounced. While they claimed to visit out of affection, I often found their presence intrusive. From the beginning, my relationship with them had been strained. They made tactless comments about my work, belittling my handmade crafts as not being real work. The worst, however, was their lack of respect for our daughter Claire's severe shellfish allergy. If she ingests even a trace, it could be life-threatening. Yet they dismissed her condition as a picky eating habit and even tried sneaking shellfish into her meals. "It's all in her head," they would say. "If you just expose her to it gradually, she'll outgrow it. Allergies are just overblown nonsense." I had to be constantly vigilant. Whenever they visited, I ensured they were never alone with Claire, but their behavior became so reckless that I begged John to intervene. "Your parents are putting Claire in danger," I pleaded. "Please ask them to stop coming over unannounced. They're just trying to help," he replied dismissively. "They care about Claire. You're overreacting, Mary. Stop worrying so much." John always sided with his parents, leaving me to shoulder the household responsibilities alone. He was exhausted from work, and I became his emotional punching bag. The only person who truly understood my plight was Ethan. Though he didn't have allergies himself, he adored Claire and went out of his way to help, checking food labels and standing up to his grandparents. One day, after John left for work, I received a midday call. "Can you clean my parents' house today? Mom's at her exercise class, and they need it done before she gets back. The kids are at school, and you're at home doing nothing, so it's no big deal," he said casually. "I have work too, John," I reminded him. "Don't act high and mighty about your little hobby, just do it." He hung up without waiting for my response, once again dismissing my time and effort as inconsequential. Resigned, I went to his parents' house. As I entered, the phone rang. Assuming it was a sales call, I answered. To my surprise, it was someone from John's company. His father had left critical documents at home, and they needed them urgently. They'd been trying to reach John's mother, but there was no response. I grabbed the documents from the table and decided to deliver them to the office. Why do I always get dragged into these things? I thought, exhausted by the constant demands. Even though it was just a short drive, the weight of it felt overwhelming. When I arrived at the company, I was greeted by one of John's coworkers, the same person who had called earlier. I recognized him from our wedding and the occasional times I had picked John up from work events. "Thank you, Mrs. Brown," he said sincerely. I didn't want to risk offending Mr. Brown's pride by calling him directly, so I tried his parents' house instead. "I'm glad you were there to help." His words seemed genuine, and he asked me to keep the matter a secret from John's father. As I turned to leave, he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "By the way, "How's your daughter doing?" John mentioned her allergy. He said he's been taking days off to care for her. I froze. My mind raced as I tried to process what he had just said. John hadn't taken a single day off for Claire. He had gone to work as usual. Thinking it was a misunderstanding, I pressed for details. It turned out John had been telling his coworkers that he was taking time off to care for our daughter. My head spun as I drove home, trying to make sense of it all. When I arrived, the kids were already asleep. Hoping to calm my nerves, I switched on the TV, but I couldn't focus. Late that night, John finally came home, his usual irritated demeanor in full force. "You didn't clean my parents' house today," he snapped. Mom called to complain. I had completely forgotten about returning to his parents' house after visiting his office. "I went to their house, but then I had to take something to your father's office," I explained. John's eyebrow twitched, and he scratched his head, a nervous habit of his. His reaction only made me more suspicious. "Who told you to go to the company?" he asked, his tone unusually sharp. I could see the worry in his eyes, but I decided to play dumb. "No one. I just dropped off the documents and left. I forgot about the cleaning after that." John sighed, his tension visibly easing. "Whatever. Just apologize to Mom tomorrow. I'm tired and going to bed." As he walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. That night, as I lay awake, I pieced together the clues: the lie about taking time off, his constant absences, and his overreactions. It all pointed to one thing: John was cheating on me. And if he was using Claire's allergy as an excuse to cover for his infidelity, I couldn't forgive him. Claire had already endured so much: teasing at school, being excluded from social activities, and constantly having to explain her condition. Ethan and I worked hard to support her, both emotionally and physically. Meanwhile, John dismissed her struggles as trivial while exploiting them for his own selfish purposes. I was consumed with anger and frustration, unable to sleep that night. By morning, I had made a decision. I hired a private investigator to uncover the truth. It hurt to spend the money I had painstakingly earned from my online business, but I needed to know. Each day, I anxiously awaited the investigator's report. A few weeks later, the results confirmed my worst fears. John was cheating. He was skipping work 2 to 3 times a week to meet his mistress, driving her around, and even spending nights at hotels with her. She was young, likely in her 20s, with long black hair and a confident, sharp look. She was stunning, beautiful enough to catch anyone's eye. Seeing the photos still left me speechless. Despite everything, it hurt to see the life we had built together crumble, but instead of sadness, I felt anger and disgust. Determined to move forward, I gathered more evidence with the investigator and consulted a lawyer to prepare for divorce. I started learning about alimony, child support, and custody. My thoughts were no longer on the past I shared with John, but on the future I would build for myself and my children. A few days later, John came home late again. "I have to work this weekend," he said nonchalantly. "The next job site is far away, so I'm going there for a preliminary survey. I'll be back on Sunday." I knew it was another lie. His coworker had told me weeks ago that John's role had shifted to an office-based position. Overnight trips were no longer part of his job. He was likely planning another weekend getaway with his mistress. "I see," I replied calmly, "but if anything happens while you're away, I'll call you immediately. Claire's been under the weather, and with your parents going on a trip, we don't have anyone else to rely on. Don't call me for anything trivial," he snapped, his irritation evident. "I'll be busy working." He stormed off to the bedroom, but his overreaction only fueled my suspicions. That night, I retrieved his credit card from its hiding spot, annoyed that he might be spending money on his mistress. Logging into the credit card company's website, I entered the password. John always used the same one. Logging into John's credit card account was surprisingly easy. As I scanned the charges, one stood out: a transaction at a luxury inn located in a secluded mountain area accessible only by car. My heart sank. I looked up the inn online, and it was exactly the kind of place John would try to pass off as a gift for his parents. But I knew better. His parents were vacationing at a seaside hotel, not a mountain retreat. John was clearly planning a getaway with his mistress, so eager to enjoy the trip that he had lashed out at me earlier to ensure nothing disrupted his plans. Disgusted by his behavior, I decided to take the next step toward freedom. I opened an apartment rental website and scheduled viewings for the weekend. By the time Saturday morning came, John was gone, leaving with an overnight bag and barely saying a word. Claire watched him leave from the breakfast table, and Ethan, still recovering from a cold, lounged on the couch. After tidying up, I got ready to leave. "I'll be back later. Take care of each other, okay?" I said. Where are you going, Mom? Claire asked. I'll tell you later, I replied, keeping my tone light. Ethan, keep an eye on Claire. Got it, he mumbled. I planned to tell them about the divorce after securing a new place for us. John's bond with the kids was weak at best. Ethan resented his father's dismissive attitude toward Claire's allergy, so I doubted they would be shocked by the news. With John's parents also out of town, it felt like the perfect opportunity to take action. I spent all of Saturday viewing apartments and, by evening, finally found one that met all my needs. It was too late to sign the contract, so I planned to return the next day. As I drove home, I wondered if John was enjoying his romantic getaway. The thought enraged me, but I reassured myself that I was making progress. The next morning, I left the kids at home again and went to finalize the apartment lease. The process went smoothly, and I signed the contract, paying the necessary fees. It felt like I'd been hemorrhaging money lately, on the investigator, the lawyer, and now this apartment, but I told myself it was an investment in a better future. Just as I was leaving the real estate office, my phone rang. It was Ethan. What's wrong, Ethan? I asked, hearing panic in his voice. Mom, it's Claire. She collapsed. We're on the way to the hospital in an ambulance. I could hear the wail of sirens in the background. My hands trembled as I clutched the phone. Ethan passed it to a paramedic, who explained that Claire was in anaphylactic shock. My mind reeled. How had this happened? I had been so careful with her meals, ensuring there were no allergens. Shaken, I rushed to my car. My hands were trembling so much that I struggled to start the engine. Realizing I needed help, I reluctantly called John. If he was checking out of the inn by now, he should have been reachable, but no matter how many times I tried, he didn't pick up. My frustration surged, but it also grounded me. Taking a deep breath, I drove straight to the hospital. When I arrived, Ethan was waiting outside the examination room. Is Claire okay? I asked, my voice quivering. The doctor approached, his expression calm. Mrs. Brown, your daughter is stable now. Her blood pressure dropped significantly, but we managed to stabilize her. She's resting peacefully. A wave of relief washed over me, and tears welled in my eyes. Thank you, I whispered, overcome by the close call. Your son acted quickly by calling for an ambulance, the doctor added. He's a remarkable young man. Ethan looked down, avoiding my gaze, but I couldn't have been prouder. As the doctor explained Claire's condition and the need for hospitalization, I left briefly to retrieve her insurance card. While sorting through the documents at home, I noticed John's card was still there. If he was on an overnight trip, shouldn't he have taken it? I didn't have time to dwell on it. After grabbing the card, I rushed back to the hospital, confirmed Claire's stable condition, and began the admission paperwork. As I filled out the forms, Ethan nudged my arm and pointed to the TV in the hospital lobby. Mom, look at that, he said. On the screen was breaking news about a single-car accident on a mountain road. The footage showed a vehicle that had crashed through a guardrail, its front mangled, but the rear, where the license plate was visible, relatively intact. Ethan and I recognized the car immediately. It was John's. The report mentioned that the two passengers had been taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. My stomach turned at the confirmation that he had been with another woman. Ethan didn't say anything further, but I wondered if he had already guessed I was planning to divorce his father. The shame of letting things spiral to this point weighed on me. Just then, my phone rang again. It was John. I hesitated, remembering his dismissive words from earlier. Don't call me for anything trivial. Now, desperate and likely scared, he was the one blowing up my phone. The irony was unbearable. After letting the call ring out, I silenced the phone. This isn't trivial, but it's not my problem anymore, I thought. I finished the paperwork and took Ethan home, where John's parents were waiting outside despite the late hour. I was already exhausted from the ordeal with Clara. Dealing with John's parents was the last thing I wanted. I left Ethan in the car and approached them. Mary, where have you been? This is an emergency. We've been trying to reach you, John's mother snapped. I had my phone off. I replied curtly. John's been in a car accident. He needed surgery and will be in the hospital for 2 weeks. He called us when you didn't answer, she continued, her voice rising with accusation. Oh, is that so? I said, feigning indifference. That's all you have to say? How can you be so calm when your husband is in such a serious condition? Do you even care about him? Their words ignited a simmering anger that I had been holding back for far too long. This was it. I was done. Clara was rushed to the hospital today in an ambulance. I began, my voice trembling but steady with resolve. She had a severe allergic reaction, and her life was at risk. I know you've heard this before, so don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. I pulled the evidence from my bag, the rice crackers that had nearly cost Clara her life, and held them out. Their expressions changed immediately, a clear sign of guilt. They scratched their heads nervously, a habit they shared with John whenever they were caught off guard. Ethan told me you came to our house today, claiming you were bringing back souvenirs from your trip. He said you showed him the usual rice crackers that Clara eats, but after Ethan left, Clara had a severe reaction in the living room. I gestured to the crackers. These aren't the usual kind. They're a limited edition flavor containing shrimp, but the box doesn't indicate that. Did you give Clara the shrimp crackers and then hide the evidence? John's mother stammered. We thought it would be fine. It's just in her head. I cut her off. I spoke to a lawyer. Intentionally giving someone an allergen when you know they're allergic could be considered assault. That's ridiculous. We were just thinking of you when we bought them. Thinking of me? My voice rose. You knowingly bought something dangerous and nearly killed my daughter. I'll never forgive you for this. Their protests fell on deaf ears as I unleashed the anger I had bottled up for so long. We came to tell you about John's accident, not argue. John's father interrupted, desperate to change the subject. I don't care about his accident, I said coldly. He was on a trip with his mistress. I handed them the evidence I had gathered from the private investigator. Their stunned silence confirmed they had no defense. I'm filing for divorce and suing all of you for damages, I concluded. At that moment, a police car pulled up. I had asked Ethan to call the authorities on our way home. The officers approached John's parents, requesting them to come in for questioning regarding potential assault charges. 2 weeks later, I received a call from the hospital where John was staying. The staff informed me that John had been demanding I visit. Reluctantly, I went, knowing it was the last loose end to tie up. You useless wife, you've ignored all my calls, John barked the moment I entered his room. I didn't answer because you told me not to call you for anything trivial. I figured you were busy, I said with a mocking smile. You took my credit card and insurance card, didn't you? Go to the front desk and pay my bill. I didn't bring your card. Maybe ask your parents for help. They're in jail because of you. The absurdity of his complaints made me laugh. I've already consulted a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them soon. Oh, and Ethan and Clara fully support the divorce. John's protests were cut short by the arrival of his mistress, Jessica, confident and unapologetic. She announced, John, I'll pay everything, alimony, child support, the hospital bills, if you divorce her and marry me. John, greedy and desperate, agreed, but before the ink could dry on their twisted arrangement, Jessica revealed her true identity, the granddaughter of a powerful crime boss. John's face turned ashen as men in black suits entered the room. Jessica smiled sweetly. Welcome to the family business, John. A month later, my divorce was finalized. Jessica paid every penny of John's debts. True to her word, John, now bound to Jessica and her dangerous world, had lost everything. As for me, I found peace with my children. Clara recovered fully, and Ethan grew into a strong, supportive young man. My handmade business flourished, and I promised myself that one day, I'd take my children on a well-deserved vacation to celebrate the new life we had built together.